It's 7 o'clock. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September 18th Wilton Board of Education meeting. It's 7 o'clock. Let's get started. Comments from the public. The board has set aside time at the beginning and end of each regular meeting for public comments. For members of the public to share their views on matters involving Wilton Public Schools and to help inform the board's decisions on such matters. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to any one subject. For the record, please give your name and address. Do we have any comments from the public? Hearing none. Move along to the consent agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the consent agenda? Yes. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? All in favour?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Reports and recognition. There's no board chair's report today because there's no board chair. There's just me. So
this is your time.
Just congratulations on the 10 Merit Scholar semi-finalists. A great showing for Wilton High School yet again.
Thank you.
Superintendent.
Great, thanks. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming to the long-range planning last Tuesday on the 9th.
It was fun.
It was fun is one way to describe it.
Okay, not so fun.
So we'll share the slides. I took the opportunity earlier this week to compile all of the notes, and I took them and I fed them into ChatGPT and said, give me a summary. And then, I read it and went back and compared, and, it was right on point. So I'll give you the top line summary of what the notes spoke to in terms of what all of the participants said about desires for our facilities. And so the first kind of theme that was loudest was around having spaces that represented flexibility and adaptability. So there was a lot of conversation and certainly reflected in the notes. The second was around anticipating, continued changes with technology and AI. That should go without saying, since that was really the overarching message of the evening. There was strong interest in better using our outdoor and community spaces. And so that's something, we don't need to wait because we have great gardens and community courtyards and things like that in several of our buildings. So that's something, we can start with the leadership teams looking at now. Fourth theme was around ensuring that the spaces are welcoming and support students' social and emotional needs. That shouldn't be, news or a surprise to anyone. The next theme was ensuring we have spaces that prepare kids with skills needed for the future, emphasizing creativity, problem solving, conflict resolution, interpersonal management. There was some conversation around helping students better prepare for vocational pathways. One of the final themes was around ensuring these spaces have infrastructure that's sustainable and reflects Wilton's green legacy here. And then the last piece was around equity and access and making sure that we've got tools, spaces, and opportunities that really match the kids who are in our buildings. So I'll send all of this to you along with the slides. But well done, people. It was good. So next steps, Eric Kyer will be joining our district administrative team when we meet later this month, and then he'll be having individual team meetings at each of the schools. And so we'll go through probably the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then we'll actually have the EdSpec documents that we can look at here at this table. That's all I got.
The EdSpec docs will be back here in October?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone got any comments, questions?
It was very interesting. His presentation was interesting. He had some interesting thoughts, and I thought it was very valuable for all of us.
Agreed. I mean, for those in the room, he was provocative.
Very.
There was a debate at least one table where a certain assistant superintendent and elementary principal were sitting, debating, the suggestion that long form literacy, is maybe coming to a close. So some things to think about.
For sure.
To guard against. Yes, and to guard against. That's right. Yeah, but I think for those of you who have been tracking, narratively, Jonathan, re-emphasized. We've already heard about focusing on, soft skills, creative thinking, critical thinking, analytical thinking, cooperation, and, looking at the curriculum, ensuring that the curriculum and the activities are durable, and, really thinking about what is it that, you can and should do with AI, and what shouldn't you do with AI, and really, and then extending that to, as we're planning facilities, make sure that the facilities match those needs.
That was an interesting way of framing it. I've forgotten. It's durable versus, what was the other one?
Vulnerable.
What was the word?
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable. I thought the way that was framed, like the things that are still, when you teach them, they're going to be useful, but the vulnerable skills are going to be swept away by AI. That was very illuminating to me.
I was sitting with a selectman who was then thinking, maybe we should spend our money in a different way. Maybe we should think about how that 150 million or 130 million or whatever it ends up being, maybe we should think about that again, just because of his presentation. Or he was just pondering that.
Third rail. Okay, moving on to review and discuss Wilton Public Schools district goals and priorities.
So you've seen versions of this in the past. Each year, we draft some goals. The district, as you know, has carried kind of three primary goals for multiple years. Those center around raising and improving growth and achievement in language arts, raising and improving growth and achievement in mathematics, and then deepening our work around school climate and ensuring that our facilities and our schools are welcoming for all of our students. Those are three of the primary overarching goals. Then we have a series of others. We have been continuing to develop our vision of a learner, and again, just kind of harkening back to Jonathan's presentation, one of the comments he made is, for schools, heading into the AI age, those are going to be some of the most important documents around skills and attributes that kids will need in the future. And so that's work that's well underway. Last year we made some good headway with some portfolio development in the elementary schools. This year we're looking at 8th grade as a target opportunity to develop a portfolio. I think you've all had the experience with some of our high school seniors in looking at their capstone projects, which are also tied to the vision of a learner. I included some data here just so you can see longitudinally around what our growth and achievement looks like in our targets. Our absolute achievement targets in ELA and are 85%. We're trying to get 85% of our kids across that threshold. If you look across time, beginning in 2015, we're making good and steady progress in that direction. For the 2025 year, you saw Chuck's presentation 2 weeks ago. 82% of our students, on average, hit the benchmark, and then just over 80 hit the benchmark in math. And then within that, we continue to focus on the achievement gap and narrowing the achievement gap, especially for our students with special needs. And here too, it's a good news trajectory. We'd like it to be a steeper angle, but we are closing and getting closer to our goal. And so we're looking to narrow the gap by another 3 points in this current year. Beyond those, under whole child, again, we have a range of school climate initiatives that are underway, and so while there's not anything new specifically, we are looking to continue to make that good work into the DNA of what we do. The instructional improvement practices, again, continue to flourish under Chuck's direction with our administrators, with our coaches. And so the instructional improvement focus remains around task design. This year we're really diving into Peter Liljedahl's work around building thinking classrooms. That's not new to us. We've been working with Peter's work now for 3 or 4 years, and so it's about expanding and deepening. You've heard some conversation about a new reading program that we have, and so that's a very heavy lift, and so we're making the lift from K to grade 5, and so lots and lots of folks here in the district are wrapped up in that and want to ensure that all of our kids can read at or above grade level. So that's a target area for us. The budget work continues to be what it's been, and to really continue to pay attention to how we're spending dollars, making sure that we're investing wisely and that we're managing well and meeting the appropriations that were provided. We have good infrastructure in place to do that. Looking forward to using OpenGov with all of you. So we've talked about this a little bit at this table. This is a new software package that we purchased a year ago, and under the direction of Lila and Marianne, they'll be coming forward with all of us and with you to use these tools to help do a better, more granular look at our budget, and hopefully, produce some documents that make our budget easier to understand for lay people. And then just kind of, working down the list. This year is a big year for us in terms of contract negotiations, so we are in the midst of negotiations now with our teachers union, and then we'll have our custodians, and then our para and secretary union will be later in the year. And so those are always, important conversations to have with those groups. And then the last thing that I included here on this list was really about some of the work of you all, and kind of how you want to spend some of your time at this table. And one of the requests that you made was spending some time in workshop and continuing to learn more about artificial intelligence and the impact of artificial intelligence on the school system and our kids and teachers, etc. I've asked Bill to lead that work, and take a minute now to give you some homework and to just speed that up.
So Kevin and I were talking last week, and he had mentioned that we would have 5 one-hour-ish sessions. So, being a teacher at heart, I automatically started to plan out some coursework for you. So each session I was hoping could have a theme, and AI would be the umbrella, but the themes would all feed into kind of our philosophy of AI and what we want to do with it, and how it can influence teaching and learning in the district and help prepare kids for the future. So I know I've talked about it with you as a board a little bit already, and some of it might be a little bit of review toward the beginning of the year, but that's always not a bad way to start a class. Our first class, if you want to call it that, would be based in this book, Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mullen. And this would kind of serve as a foundation for some of our thinking about AI and kind of where we might want it to go. I have a few activities in mind for us for that session. I believe it's in October, the first one. I have the dates on here. That would follow up with some subsequent sessions that would focus more on, the next one could be more about student engagement, how AI can help serve as a tool for that. And I have another reading tied in with that I'll announce later. It's called the Disengaged Team, and there's some. If you've heard of that book, it's actually really, really cool. So we can talk more about that. Following that, I was hoping to do another session where we could talk about how AI and digital citizenship intersect. The book for that would be Raising Humans in a Digital World. And that's actually the foundation of our digital literacy curriculum, especially at the middle school, because the person who wrote that book, Diana Grable, I think, she also created cyber civics. So that's a really nice tie-in, and we're including AI and instruction directly with students on how to help prepare them for that in middle school and beyond. And then by the time we roll around to March, I think it'd be time to talk a little bit more carefully about curriculum, some of the implications there. Kevin and I arranged to have Matt Mervis come in for that particular meeting, since he and his team at EdAdvance have really advanced in what they have to say about curriculum, so he can help do a presentation, help us think about that. And then in April, we have one more meeting where we kind of wrap things up and talk about next steps. So that's more or less the trajectory of the semester, the year, of course. And if you'll tolerate me handing out a reading assignment, I have them for everybody, by the way, so no one is safe, but if you want to pass them around. If you're familiar with the book, or if you read it already, great. If not, I think you'll enjoy it. Ethan Mollick is a really well-respected and well-respected and dynamic expert in the field. He teaches at Wharton Business School, and do all the board members have one at this point?
Yes.
Yeah, just and one for Ruth. And
Okay. Pass it down.
Are the workshops?
Pardon?
What time are the workshops?
Right during our normal time. Yeah.
so just in just of just helping everybody be efficient, we'll take an hour of our board meeting, over 5 board meetings, and just this will be just workshop style in a regular meeting.
That's great.
Thank you. I have a few more downstairs, but I'll make sure you get one. Yeah. So anyway, thanks. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And so it's not an assignment. If you have a chance to read it between now and our first session, we'll do some review of the book, and we'll also spend some time practicing, or kind of me doing a little bit of show and tell of the AI tools a little bit beyond, more in depth than we did last year when we talked about them. Cool. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mel. Anyone got any questions on the goals and priorities?
Okay. So I'll ask you to take a little bit of time over. If you don't have questions, it'll be on the next agenda. I'll ask you to support them with a vote. There's none of that into word. Questions there we can talk to.
So if I've got a couple of questions,
Yeah.
but I can get them down and you can talk about them next time.
Whatever you like.
Yeah, then you can pass. Okay. Next up, transportation update.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to update the board on our progress with transportation over the past several weeks. As you may recall, this is the first year of a new 5-year contract with STA. We, as part of that negotiations process, we procured an entirely new fleet of buses. So our students are riding in style. They arrived in spurts over the summer, and Dan Pacino, our terminal manager, I think was the most excited. And maybe second to Dan was Kevin, who had the opportunity to sit in the big yellow school bus in the driver's seat, and we have some photos. As much as he wanted to drive, we assured him that he couldn't because he didn't have the appropriate license to do so. So the other piece that we are just proud to highlight is that we started the year fully staffed. And while that may seem like a given when there's a national shortage of drivers, that's no small feat. And I want to just acknowledge Dan Pacino, our terminal manager, and our wonderful partnership with STA, I think, which is part of the reason why we continue to work with them year after year, because they've just been great partners in this work. I also want to highlight the work of Helene Walker, who is our transportation liaison. Helene's work is continuous throughout the year, and I just want to highlight that, she's a former parent here in Wilton. She raised her children here, and she knows the routes, she knows the streets, she understands parents who call with special requests and questions, and she takes exceptionally special care to try to consider every request and provide a high level of service to all of our families. And I want to acknowledge that it's not easy work, particularly in this first few weeks of school where we're trying to iron out kinks that we don't always anticipate. And she's just exceptionally pleasant, patient, kind, and always thinks about how to deliver service to our students while also meeting the needs of our school district. Just to give you some stats over the past couple of weeks, Day 1, we had 23 late buses. Certainly not something that we hoped for, but not unusual for the start of the school year. Here we are 18 days in. Now we have about 1 to 2 late buses a day, so a great progression. Arrival in the afternoon, arrival home was quite late the first day, but now by day 18, we're right in line with where we were last year, so that's really good news. What are some of the things that contribute to the buses being delayed? Things that we really can't influence, right? Down wires. All of these things have happened, by the way, over the past couple of weeks. Down wires multiple times. down trees, limbs that obstruct roads, an accident on the Merritt Parkway, a truck on fire on Middlebrook Farm Road. So all of these things obviously are unanticipated. We really have no control, and we have to act at a moment's notice sometimes when the buses are delivering children home, and we realize in some cases that the streets are closed. And Helene and Dan and their team work exceptionally well to try to get the message out. Is it perfect? No, because we are working in an imperfect world and an imperfect situation with all of these things. Some of the other things that influence the routes, particularly in the afternoons, is we think about the tier that's the most impacted, which happens to be the Miller Driscoll tier, and our youngest students, who we want to get home because they're tired. It's been a long day. Some of the things that continue to influence some of those routes being delayed is we have kindergartners who are, exiting the bus, and we do have a requirement that there's an adult always present to meet them, and we don't always have the adults there, I'm sure for various reasons. So those kids are returned back to school in some cases. The other piece is that some of our younger students don't always recognize their bus stops in the first few weeks of school. So that's something that I think has improved, but those are some of the things that influence the late arrivals in the afternoon as well. We continue to optimize the routes, not just now, but throughout the year. And the other piece, aside and apart from our buses, is that we're very pleased that we have a new van that we purchased. We talked a bit about this last year, but that van, I want to credit Melissa Barrett for really exploring that, pursuing that. That van is actually supporting our routes for Community Steps and Genesis in some cases. And we're hoping, this is our first year, we'll see what the savings are for that. We're hoping it's going to be somewhere in the realm of $80,000, but this is really our test to see how that goes. And we're very pleased we have our new driver in place. And so far, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from our students. So overall, we've demonstrated consistent improvement. We're going to be optimizing our routes to improve efficiency, and we know that Helene will continue to provide her excellent service with great care. So thank you. Yeah, she's wonderful.
How many buses do we have this year?
We have 33 of the big buses and 3 of the vans, which are really mini buses. A lot of times we call them vans, and people are actually looking for a van, but it's the mini buses.
So the reductions, we lost 2 buses last year.
We lost 2 buses for the 24-25 school year. So we have the same number of buses this year as we did last year, but 2 fewer than the year before.
Cool. Yeah. And there's the van driver for Genesis Community Steps is employed by the district, right?
That is a person who is employed by the district, and we were fortunate to actually, we form relationships sometimes with people. This was a person who drove for a private transportation company, and so this is a really experienced driver. And again, we form relationships, and they just want to come work with us. So, we hope that the places we steal people from will continue to be friends with us. But it's a balance. Find great people.
And in the event that person is off sick, what would happen then?
We've just identified a person to be the alternate, and we're working through that process to get the person that the appropriate licensure.
It's not you, is it?
It is not me.
Not yet. He's hoping.
It's on the list.
He's kind of busy, so.
And one last question from me. Are there any more cameras on the stop arms or anything on these new buses?
Not
Is that even
So we're looking at it. The law around those changed recently. Actually, Patrick put me in touch with a gentleman at Bus Patrol, which is the company that's operating, I think, in Bridgeport and Danbury very recently in the last year. So I think this week our drivers are actually collecting data around vehicles that illegally pass through the reds, and so it's something we're going to look at because there are a number of steps we'll have to take in order to install those. There's a municipal ordinance requirement now, so we need some things from the town of Wilton in order to.
So the town would have to make some changes to enable us.
Yeah, in the old, before the most recent piece of legislation was passed, enforcement was a challenge, and there wasn't a financial incentive for us. The money went to the state, and so now the state provides Nordens, we have to, kind of notify everybody that their exterior cameras. But the police can take action and get citations, and actually the town collects the money. That's how I understand the way it works.
That's interesting, because I may have called the police department a few times on buses passing, cars passing the buses, and there seemed to be some resistance from either the bus drivers or the police to really pursue it. So that makes sense why they didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I think it was hard to. I think they had some other challenges around prosecution. So my understanding is, and I haven't spoken to anyone in these other communities where this company Bus Patrol seems to be the industry leader at the moment, where they're operating to understand. I wanted to get some local data first to really understand the magnitude of the problem, and then like we always do, we have to do a cost benefit.
Was it in the news last week? Was it Torrington? They caught 200 people passing the buses since the beginning of the school year.
I don't know what time. I remember the headline.
Bridgeport, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It could be a significant revenue driver for us as well if we do it. It takes a lot of coordination.
Right.
This company, I mean, there's multiple providers out there, but
yeah, I believe it is a problem that people just kind of, like there's another one, so that would be great. Well, that's all the questions from me. Does anyone else have a transportation question for Maria?
I'm just curious, is ridership the same? Do we know yet? Do we have counts? Is it consistent year over year? I know we do an audit. I can't remember what
I
time.
believe we do our counts in October. We wait a little while, because at the beginning of the year, there's definitely a trend where some parents drive their kids to school.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes they're just trying to avoid the late buses. Sometimes the extra cars on the road contribute to the late buses because it causes additional traffic. So I believe we do the first count. We haven't done it yet. But as soon as we have that, I'll double check that with Helene, but as soon as we have that, we will provide that to the board and we can share that information.
I'll say anecdotally, both my kids take the bus and it's fantastic. Usually it's right about now where one of them starts showing up on time on the bus, and they were right on time from day one, so really good.
We have some really amazing drivers who develop really positive relationships with the families. So much so that sometimes families call and are sad because their driver was switched to a different route and they didn't have the opportunity to say goodbye, or they want to continue with that driver. But there's a lot of joy for them in doing this work. Some of them come back and work for us during the school day in between their shifts, and they work in our cafeterias, and there are recess and cafeteria monitors and things like that. So we're lucky to have a dedicated staff, and many of them have been with us for years. So
And it seems like I feel like their last few years there's been a lot of there's a lot of turnover at the beginning of the year sometimes. Have not seen that at all yet, so it's great. Makes it easier to get the kids to go to school.
Still on the bus for at least 2 more weeks.
Well, I always tell the bus drivers, we meet with the bus drivers periodically, just, there are safety meetings or, we want to demonstrate our appreciation, but they're the first point of contact and the last point of contact. Yeah. And so they set the tone for the day for our kids and also how they're feeling about their day at the end when they're headed home. And so ensuring that point of contact is a really positive one is it can't be overstated for some kids. Right? And so I just want to acknowledge the work that they do and their positivity because, as a parent said to me one year, every point of contact makes a difference, right? And you never know for a student when the bus driver is going to be the favorite part of the day, right?
Or the nicest.
I always remember Henry, our first bus driver at Miller Driscoll.
Right.
Last year we offered families the opportunity to opt out of saying they were going to ride the bus. Did that catch on at all, or was that?
I think so. The spirit of that was to just try to understand ridership and to get as accurate as we could about how many kids were at what stops. And I think when we published that at the start of last year, I think it was misunderstood by some as, we might have been trying to take a right away or a privilege away or deny people access to the bus. And that was never intended to be that. We just really want to have as clear a sense as possible of the ridership patterns. And so it was not, we didn't get a strong response. It wasn't well received, and the feedback I did get was enough to say, I'll ask a different question the next time.
All right. Moving on, policy audit.
Great. So as you know, we contracted with CABE at the start of the summer to review our policy manual, and so they did a very, very good job. I'll just read to you kind of the summary statement and then talk through a few high points here. So this is from CABE. Overall, the Wilton Policy Manual is in excellent shape with most policies appropriate in their current form and a minimal number of missing mandated policies and policies requiring modification. The manual demonstrates a strong commitment by the Wilton Board of Education and Administration to develop and maintain policies, administrative regulations, and bylaws that provide district stakeholders, including personnel, students, and their families, and the Board of Education with the information, guidelines, understandings, and structures needed to effectively work within the district. So that was great news, and not a surprise because we have been working on our policy manual for all the years I've been here. In terms of very concrete feedback, they shared that about 81% of the policies were good to go as is, and then of the remaining 19%, there were a handful of new mandated policies because of the most recent legislative session that we didn't have. So you're voting on one of those tonight. There are some others. One was remanded back to the policy committee at the last meeting, and then we're going to kind of steadily bring forward the others. Most of the other policies were requiring just legal updates. So the kind of section of the policy at the very end, there weren't necessarily language changes, but there were updated statutes and what have you, and so it was a lot of technical updates. A couple that you had voted on, at the last meeting, were just coded wrong. So instead of being in the 6,000 section, they needed to be in the 5,000 section. So that was pretty straightforward. And then in my own review here of the policies that they were naming as mandated, there were several that caught my attention because these have come up in the past. So one was on a minimum duty-free lunch period for certified staff. Another was on personnel reduction. And I had to go back and just confirm my understanding that if there's provisions that address those issues in collective bargaining units, then a district doesn't need a policy. And so we have those. We have long-standing language in our collective bargaining agreements that speak to those issues, so we don't need a policy for those. So there are some things that looked like we needed that we don't. I've got I'm not going to bother you with the list, but I think just, in general, our priority work will be focused on just bringing forward whatever other missing policies we have, updating and correcting those policies that need it. And then CABE has a very lengthy list of recommended but not required policies, and so there's a third on the priority list of entertaining. And just, they recommend there's a bunch of different ones across every section of the policy manual that they describe as, good information for boards and good practice. And so we'll just have to look at it in turn and make a decision about whether we think they should belong in our manual or not.
Do you think they used AI to go through all the policies?
That's a great question. It was a human that signed off on it, so maybe
they do it in 10 minutes. So all of the changes, all of the missing ones, all of the things that we might want to consider having, they're all written in here.
Correct. Yep, it's all there. Yeah, and then there's so you've got the summary sheet, and then there's a more detailed digest. If you're interested in it, it breaks it out by a specific section that I'm happy to share.
Thank you for all the fine work of the policy committee, and you can. Okay. Possible action items: discuss and approve policy regulation 5131.911 Connecticut school climate policy.
Okay, so I'm asking the board for a motion to approve the Connecticut school climate policy. As I described a couple of weeks ago, this policy completely supplants our old bullying and safe school climate policy. The language is it was mandated that Kate write it, and it's mandated that it was adopted. So this is not an area where, it's a discretionary voluntary policy. The changes are, beneficial, and, Kim was here a couple weeks ago and spoke to it, and we have worked with the administration on, the school administrations, on the changes we need to make. And so, the enactment of the policy is well underway.
So are there any budgetary implications for this new policy?
I have to think about that. I mean, not directly. This is where we had, practices and procedures around investigating complaints. So that's in place. The deepening the work around restorative practice, may be a time hit for our staff.
Is there a PD plan for that?
We've had PD about it already. We had Jessica, here with our district administration that was brought to the buildings. I've done some work on the facets of this policy. And I think then the other piece, no good climate policy comes without a bevy of new paperwork. And so, that's been a challenge because, again, we didn't have discretion in how those forms were created and, what the forms demand. And so, as we're working through, we're discovering some things that we'd like to change. So, our plan is to live through it for a year, revisit whatever we can revisit. So I think, indirectly, it's a question of time.
Okay. And the school climate specialist is each principal?
Correct, and that's written in the statute.
It says climate specialist, or it does specify someone else, but. And so by December 31st, we have to have some data that then gets published, shared. Kim coming back here.
It will, yeah. And so she's working on, kind of just a simple way to do that.
Other climate committees for each school, are they up and running?
They are. I don't know that they've all met yet, but there was part of a different committee that is still operating. But, some of the policy work will be run by the committees, of which the principals and the chair.
I think she did confirm, I asked at the last meeting, I think she confirmed that they're all up and running individually by school.
Anyone have any
The
questions?
state wanted them back at the school level, because there was a district committee. The state recommended that the building principals take that on and do it from their own building instead of us, which was probably smart.
Yeah.
Smarter.
Okay. So are we voting on this?
Yeah, if you don't mind, can we have a motion to adopt policy 5131, 911, school climate policy?
Okay.
So moved.
Thank you, Laurie. Another second. Thank you, Patrick. All in favour? All right. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. Now the fun part. Catherine, come on up. Wilton High School Theatre Trip 2027.
You're the star of the show. You get right in the middle. This is Catherine Luxstone, our artistic director, who is proposing a field trip to the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland, which she participated in as a student at Wilton High School in 2001. And she's been organizing this trip. She presented it to me last year. I presented the idea to Dr. Smith, and we said, let's move this forward. So we're excited to be accepted into the program. Congratulations, and what would you like to tell us about it?
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. Thank you for having me on your agenda for this evening. Yes, this is really, really exciting news for the theater program. This is to be part of the American High School Theater Festival, which is then performed at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. We actually are on the materials and are part of the full Fringe lineup. And other high schools participate in this as well. And so it is a great opportunity for students to have a chance to obviously travel, have exposure to international artists, and be able to perform and see another country and another culture and experience that in a way that was very, very formative to me when I was able to do it as a student. So I'm really excited to have this full circle moment and to have other students now participate in this as well. There are just some things, some business things I wanted to highlight specifically to you all. The cost per student, first of all, the trip itself is a 2-week trip. Yes. So this starts with our arrival in London. It is a 4-day trip in London where we will have the opportunity to do different theater workshops, to go and do some sightseeing, go to the Globe Theater, and then travel to Edinburgh, and then be part of the Fringe Festival, and that is a whole other additional 10 days. So over that, for that 2-week span, cost per student, and this is based on 40 student participant amount. We can accommodate more than 40 if the interest and desire is really there. I would say our cap is around 50 students that we can really accommodate reasonably. The cost per student is $6,709. And there's a lot of things that are included in that price. But that's also why this is a 2-year planning project, because this is for the summer of 2027, because that will allow a lot of opportunity for fundraising, for families to make payments on a low cost basis per month moving forward. They would have, if they start in October, would have 20 months to pay for the trip over time. And the parent company, World Strides, is renowned for being an educational travel company for this specific project. They've been doing this for over 30 years. Well, they haven't been out of high school that long, but it's a very reputable company. They're wonderful. There's a lot of benefit to being with them. I will say that insurance is separate from that cost. So they offer 2 different plans. One plan is $149. The second plan is $249. Those are both optional through World Strides. Students are also able to have their own independent travel insurance if families so choose. And there is a cancellation policy in place for if you do not have travel insurance, and that is on a rolling basis, sort of basically from 150 days out all the way to 30 days. But a refund to a varying degree is available over that period of time. And that also applies to the school as well. The cancellation policy for us is the same in terms of the amount of time that we would have. If for some reason it was necessary for us to cancel, we wouldn't all but just lose the money that we paid off. Safety and security. World Strides offers assistance on call for travel interruption 24/7. They also have a 24-hour doctors on call program to provide phone consultations. They also provide professional night security. There's on-site staff 24/7. There are staff members to greet us upon arrival in London and in Edinburgh. And the University of Edinburgh staff, and there's an infirmary there on site as well. We also will plan to have a 5-to-1 chaperone, or a 1-to-5 chaperone ratio. So that especially because it is a longer trip, and I have been on it myself, and I know I got sick on that trip for a couple of days. So that, we have to allow for a longer period of time various things can happen over that period of time. So I feel it necessary to have more chaperones than, say, you would need the ratio you would have on a shorter trip. Any questions?
I think you'll have some volunteer chaperones if you're.
Looking forward to it.
Fun.
Yeah.
How great.
Yeah.
Is there an expectation of how much, or do you guys have an estimate of how much of the total cost of it will be via fundraising versus
So there's student fundraising, there's a student fundraising. So one of the benefits of using World Strides is that all of the financial elements are through them. And when a student signs up to participate, they will automatically they will be enrolled into the sort of online portal of the trip. And each student will receive, for lack of a better phrase, an independent GoFundMe page. Yeah. So they will have an individual link that they can send to family, friends, neighbors, so that any monies that they want to contribute will go directly to that student's principal. On top that independent of student fundraising, I'm also going to be working with the Theater Arts Association Booster Club to raise funds to lower the overall principal for each student. My goal is to raise a minimum of $20,000, which based on a 40 student participation would be $500 per student to hopefully bring that down.
Great. Yeah. So whatever is not fundraised is the responsibility of the individual students.
Correct.
Got it.
Tell us about a day. Well, tell us about a day in Edinburgh and what you would be doing as a performance or as a rehearsal, or just describe sort of what happens to the kids.
Sure. So we will do 4 performances, and they do space it out over the course of the time. So you may do a matinee one day, you might do an evening performance the next. They allow that diversity in the schedule so that we can, say, take an excursion and go hike Arthur's Seat in the morning. And then we can go and see the Royal Military Tattoo in the evening, which is part of it as well. There are various other cultural sort of things that they have set up that we participate over the course of that time as well.
So you're taking a play over there.
Yes.
So you have a play.
Yes.
And you have students that are in the play.
Yes.
I'm assuming, and you're going to take that over there.
Correct.
And then you're going to perform it
Correct.
a bunch of days.
Yes.
Matinees and nighttime.
Yes. And then also experience and be part of the International Fringe Festival as well. Students will have the opportunity to meet the other students that are part of this high school festival. We'll be able to go and see their shows, be able to go and see professional shows, be able to do workshops with professional artists as well. There's very little downtime.
That sounds great.
Yes, it is very exciting.
Do you apply to be accepted?
Yes, there's quite a lengthy application process, and it is reviewed by a panel of collegiate level theater makers.
And are there any other local schools who will be attending?
Well, I do know that this summer, I believe Fairfield Ludlow participated this year. I don't know of students that are going our year, but also part of why they make it a 2-year process is to allow that much time for fundraising and for families to be able to pay for the trip, but also for a week next summer, a director from each program for 2027 will go for a week. And so I will go for a week next summer and be able to meet all of the other teachers and be able to see the dorms at Edinburgh University, see firsthand all of the security and the way the whole festival will operate for the year after.
Great.
Which students will be eligible to attend? Like, is it current 7th graders, 8th graders can?
It would be our current 8th grade through 9th grade. Through 11th grade. So 8, 9, 10, 11 are, so after our seniors that graduate in 2027 are still applicable to come with us then that year. So our intent is that our fall play next year will be the production that we bring that following summer, so that they will have already been in the play as a senior. They go through the school year, and then we'll rehearse a little bit again and go in the summer.
What's not to love?
I agree.
You going, Pam?
Well, I would. I think it'd be so cool to go.
Yeah.
Other schools and to just be in Scotland.
We need board representation there.
I know. I think we need another chaperone.
Absolutely.
I'm going to arrange a theatre alumni speech.
Perfect. Start selling lemonade.
Any other questions? Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for doing this. Clearly, you're an amazing, dedicated teacher to think of this and to go through the application process. And
You do great shows.
yeah,
So have you picked the play?
We are planning to do a play called 26 Pebbles.
26 pounds.
By,
Of course, you're catching me at the bottom. Sorry to remember the
Just say anything.
Eric Uloa. Eric Uloa. Yes.
good for you.
Thank you.
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your dedication to our
My
students.
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, one last thing. I'm going to make a motion to approve the truth.
Yes. Thank you. That would be great.
Can I have a motion to? Thank you, Patrick.
Second.
Thank you, Pam. All in favour? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
So funny.
It's the end, right?
You're doing great.
Okay, so are there anyone online who wishes to make a public comment, Lucy? Seeing no one in the room. Nope. No comments at the end of the meeting. So at 7:51.
Done.
Close. Can I just?
Gavel.
Next time.